Can you guys hear me or see me? I don't know why it's not showing my face. Bizarre. Why it's not working. Oh, you can see me? Okay, cool. Um, Usually I can see myself, and right now it's just saying, oh, this is a private video, and I don't know what that means because this is a live chat. So we'll give people a couple more minutes. It's great to hear from you guys. This is my last YouTube live session with you guys. Um, Nobody showed up to the first session, which was a bummer, but I'm glad that I'm seeing so many people popping in right now. Um, so, in a couple minutes, I will start answering questions, but feel free to start typing just so we can kind of, get them ready. Um, yeah, so start typing questions. I'm going to leave a message in Classroom. Bizarre. I don't know why YouTube does certain things. Anyway, yeah, so if you guys have questions, you can start sending them in. I will start answering them. This shouldn't be too long today, um, just because of the little bit of traffic I've been getting today. I'm just assuming it'll be shorter. Um, but do send in your questions and comments, and we will discuss. So, hello, Jesse. Hello, Steph. Hello, Catherine. Hello, Coral. Hi, Chris. How come the United States went into Vietnam? So, you'll cover this with Mr. Roebuck in a couple weeks. You still have to get through Kennedy and civil rights first. Um, but once you get to Vietnam, he'll explain that it's another, it's just like the Korean War. All right, we were trying to stop the spread of communism, okay, and Vietnam was another country that was susceptible to falling to communism. The Soviets had their eyes on Vietnam. They were trying to get the northern, what they would call the Viet Cong, to be communists and support the Soviets and basically become a satellite state. But of course, the United States says, well, we're not going to allow this to happen, so we're going to invade Vietnam. Um, and obviously, we saw how that turned out. So, this idea of containment that, we can't let this domino effect continue where one country after country keeps falling and spreading because of communism. So, the United States, to answer your question, went into Vietnam to stop communism, just like they did in Korea. Steph says, why were the two men from the CIA willing to risk their lives in Antarctica for information found in the abandoned research facility? So, you got to think of the CIA and the FBI agents as kind of, I don't want to equate them to soldiers or people in the military, but essentially they are a branch, I would argue, of the military. Not of the military, of the president's ability to exercise power. Um, and so it's just like anybody in the army. Why are you willing to risk your life for country, for my family, for freedom? If we go to Antarctica and get these Soviet secrets, we could stop them from bombing the United States. We could see what they're doing, keep up with them, make sure they're not doing anything nefarious, and really just this mission was so important because an opportunity like this had never come up before, where the Soviets just left a research base and left all the research behind. Okay, they left what they were looking up, what they were trying to figure out, what they were researching, obviously, what they were trying to do. And in our case, or in this case, it was how to destroy submarines and ships uh, with submarines, right, of the Soviets, like nuclear-powered submarines. Um, but they were doing it under the ice, which I think was pretty neat. So they were learning how to, use cover, strike boats most efficiently, find weak points, all that kind of stuff. Hi, Hidessa, how are you? Were there other big events? Jesse asked, were there other big events happening besides the Cold War? Um, I mean, yes, of course there were. There was in China. China became communist during the 50s. The dictator Mao Zedong takes over, and he pretty much wipes out the nationalists. And this is where you get that split between Taiwan and China, and I'm sorry, Tibet and China. So no, I was right. Taiwan. I can't speak today. Um, so that's where you get that split from, and China becomes a communist country at this time. So not only are we supporting these nationalists that are fighting against the communists in Korea and in Vietnam, but we're also supporting them in China. And the reason we don't talk about it is because we didn't really engage as much as we did with Korea and Vietnam. So in China, we're supporting the nationalists. So when Mao finally takes power, and you should have learned about this in world history, but when he finally takes power, um, the United States looks bad. Obviously, they were against him. They didn't want him to run the country. They didn't want communism to be the main pillar of China. Okay, so, and besides that, there were millions of other things going on. The Middle East was starting to, how do I say this? The Middle East was starting to build pressure, okay, because we've already had Israel, the insertion of Israel. You should have learned about this in world history too. We have the insertion of Israel. We have Reza Shah being put in power in Iran by Eisenhower, and we have all these other things going on in the Middle East that really are not that concerning for people in the United States and in the West because we're not as interested. Okay, we haven't like quite found oil like we know about it now, so we knew there was oil there, but we didn't quite know how much there was. So it wasn't really like a valuable thing. So I would say that yes, of course, there was other things going on. Africa had its own things going on. They were recovering from uh, African countries were recovering from being colonies and suffering the long-term effects of colonialism. South America was basically shoring up their capitalist identity. If anybody's seen Evita, in Argentina, that Juan and Eva Perón become dictators of Argentina. They take power. The United States basically says, okay, South America, you're going to stay, like you saw in the video, you're going to stay capitalist. You're not going to become communists. All right, we have enough problems to worry about. Remember the Monroe Doctrine. Okay, remember the Roosevelt Corollary. Remember all these things that said the United States basically oversees South America. So we know that South America is pretty much locked down. We're good with them. So we're focusing on other areas of the world. Okay, so to answer your question, Jesse, yes. Hidessa, how did America find out about? How did America find out the KGB agents if they were so secret? So when you have two intelligence agencies butting heads, they're gonna have spies within the spy agencies. So they'll have double agents, they'll have traitors, they'll have spies that are stealing information and relaying it to the country, to the loyalist country. Um, and the KGB were secret, but people knew that the KGB existed. It wasn't like it was this, uh, underground, just under secretive, under lock and key kind of government organization that's a shadow organization that hides behind everything. It was basically like the CIA. We know that the CIA exists. We know what they do. We know that they're pretty shady. Okay, the Russians knew the same thing, but they knew the KGB was more efficient and had been around for a longer time and was more terrorizing. So America knew about the KGB because it was just a known fact. Now, the specifics on their missions, what they were trying to accomplish, all of those things would be found through the spies, the informants, the traitors, the double crossers, whatever you want to call them. Okay, and that's a good example of the Rosenbergs, right? They were accused of being spies for the Soviets, and they were executed for it. Okay. So Carl says, what does it mean when they say it was an indirect war? So I know it's hard to conceptualize this, but it's the idea that we are not going to directly engage this with the Soviet Union. We're not going to fight them. Okay, we're going to indirectly through these second and third world countries engage them. So in most cases, the Soviets would not have their militaries with North Korea or the North Vietnamese or the Chinese, but the Americans would march in with the Southern Democratic, uh, uh, groups. So when the American forces join up with the Vietnamese, the South Koreans, the Chinese nationalists, yes, we are directly engaging in warfare. However, we're indirectly engaging with the Soviets, right? Because who's supporting our enemy? The Soviets. We're not directly shooting at them. We're not attacking them. We're not doing anything to hurt the Soviets directly. However, by destroying this enemy, by destroying our enemy, the person they support, okay, we are weakening them. All right. And we're going to be doing this in several other countries too. This isn't just these three events. Okay, it's not just China, Vietnam, and Korea. It's going to be in several countries in Africa, several countries in Eastern Europe, um, and what we're going to see here is that the United States is terrified, and so is the Soviet Union, terrified of engaging directly, because what do we have now that we didn't have 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago? You guessed it, nuclear weapons, right? So we have bombs that can incinerate cities. We have potentially devastating weapons that, if used, would depopulate the Earth and pretty much end the world. Okay, today we have the ability to destroy the planet 3 times over with just our weapons. Okay, with our bombs. So, we have these weapons at our disposal, but we don't want to use them. They're just here for show, and we're just using them as a threat. If you attack us directly, we will shoot these missiles at you. Okay, and vice versa. So we're going to go into these countries and use them as pawns. Okay, but we're also going to send in our troops to support them, but while never engaging directly with the Soviets. Does that make more sense, Coral? Steph says, in 1949, the USSR set out their first atomic bomb. What was this significance, and why did this push USA to set up NATO? So, we're the only people in the world who had atomic weaponry. We were the only ones who had nuclear weapons and atomic weapons. And so when the Soviets in 1949 get their first bomb, well, now there's competition. It used to be that, we are the top dogs because if you, try to invade us, or if you're close to conquering us, we'll just throw our bombs at you and just devastate your population. Okay? But now your, adversary has the ability to say, oh, there's another player here. We are going to fire at you the same missiles that will devastate your population if you fire at us. Okay, so now that the Soviets have weapons, we're no longer the top dog. We're made equal. And so what we do is we say, hey, NATO needs to be set up. It needs to be, the uh, the not protectors, but the watchdogs, I would say, of the planet, and really used to de-escalate a lot of tensions. Yeah, so that's pretty much the way to sum it up. It's important because A, there are enemies, and B, now we have another world superpower, the only remaining one, that has atomic weapons that they could use against us. And just to go back to Coral's point really quick, with indirect warfare, if you've ever seen Rocky, if you've ever seen Rocky 4, I should say, if you've ever seen that, or if you've ever seen what is that other movie? The hockey movie Miracle, I think it's called, where we're going against the Russians. Indirect warfare means we're trying to prove that we're the best. We're trying to prove that capitalism and democracy are the most important and most efficient and, most right and moral types of government. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to say, all right, well, we're going to use these competitions, specifically the Olympics, okay, to prove that we're the best country. So tensions were high, and this is another kind of indirect battle or engagement without violence. And I mean, there was violence, but not war, I should say. Hi, Mia. How are you? Do you guys have any other questions or comments? My connection's kind of shoddy right now. So you all can hear about Kim Jong-un, how he's potentially dying. It'll be interesting to see if he dies, what happens next. Because he has 3 kids, allegedly, but they're like, the oldest is 8 years old. So if he dies and, there's going to be this power vacuum, I wonder if his sister, who's like his second-hand man, who's the leader of, what is her department called? Propaganda and International Antagonism or something like that. That's literally the department's name. And she's a very powerful woman. So I wonder if she'll take power if he dies. Just a thought. And the only reason I'm bringing up North Korea right now is because we just talked about the Korean War. Tomorrow you're going to be watching like 13 minutes of the newest PBS documentary. Remember, I told you PBS is the greatest. I love it. Except for their climate change stuff, because now it's not really as true as it could be. So PBS released this in December. Great documentary on the Korean War, and I'll only make you guys watch the first 13 minutes. It's excellent. I think you'll enjoy it. Let me know if you have any other questions. I'm still here. I'm still listening. I'm still available. Don't forget, tomorrow we have office hours with Mr. Roebuck and at 11 o'clock, and which are optional. And we also are having a test on Friday, 25 questions, multiple choice, and 1 question open-ended. Catherine says, why is the U.S. so far behind the Soviet in terms of intelligence? I've been watching the news about North Korea. It's super interesting. Yes, it is. So the reason we're behind is because, well, obviously we just didn't have an organization like this. We had the FBI, but the FBI was internal, right? They're the ones who are like the secret police of the United States, right? They're inside. They're making sure that everything domestically is going well, and there's no communists, there's no anarchists, there's nobody who's going to potentially try to overthrow the government, okay? As well as protecting the general population, whether it be because of murders or anything like that. But we never had an intelligence agency to that degree, okay, to the degree of the CIA, I should say. The closest thing we had was the FBI, but in no way do they square up to the CIA. The CIA became so powerful and so necessary during this time because, we have the KGB now, and we have, not that they weren't there before, but now they're actively coming after us. And now, now is the most necessary time to have spies and intelligence agencies because we need to know what our enemy is doing. Okay? When the world is on the verge of a nuclear destruction, you know, you're going to want an intelligence agency. So to answer your question, it's more so we just didn't need one. Okay? Because remember, we were very isolationist. We were very, looking in at ourselves and only really, looked to foreign affairs when it came to the world wars. All right? But now we're this global organization, or we're this, global power, and we need this organization to really make sure that there's no threats to us. Okay, when it comes to nuclear war, you're not going to take any chances. Mia says, why didn't they bring their information with them before they left the Arctic? The CIA would have never gotten any documents. So there's... Okay, so I'll just try to sum this up as concisely as I can. Basically, the Soviets were confident that nobody knew this base existed. Okay? They thought that the United States didn't know because it was in the Antarctic. Okay? Plus, they were going to go back to the base when conditions got better so that they could go back and, continue their research. So it was kind of like, why would I move my entire house just for a couple months just to move back? So the Soviets said, well, nobody knows about it anyway. Why should we use all this, time, energy, resources, and money to move all of our equipment and documents back to Russia, which is on the other side of the planet, if we're just going to come back in a couple months? It doesn't make sense. However, they were incorrect because the United States knew about it, and, if I had a base in the middle of the Antarctic, I would also probably think that it's, pretty secretive and not well known. But in terms of why they didn't take the most important stuff with them, which I would have done, I would probably have to say it was mostly due to probably because they just couldn't carry that much stuff. It's not all on computers, right? It's all papers. It's all typed documents. It's all telegrams on the special paper and everything like that. So these are big cases of papers and files. It's not as easy as just kind of downloading all your data and documents onto a microchip or a flash drive and, putting it in your pocket and going up on the plane to leave. We have to bring all these big boxes of paper onto the plane, right? So when you're looking at this kind of thing, it's really kind of, what's it called? They say that, why can't I remember the thing? It's like when you know something because it happened. I don't remember. Anyway, so hindsight is 2020, right? But we also have to remember the technological advances they had. Okay, it wasn't as easy as clicking a button and having it on something that you could fit in your pocket. It was dozens and dozens, potentially hundreds of boxes of thousands of papers, very heavy papers, I might add. So they took the gamble. They said, okay, this base is probably secure. It's probably, probably secret enough that we don't have to worry about this. Okay? So if there's no more questions, well, I'll give you another minute to type in questions. And if I don't get any questions, we'll wrap it up. Well, if there's no more questions, I know I said I'd give it a minute, but enter something now or forever hold your peace. Yes, I know I'm cool. Thank you. If there's no more questions, I guess I will speak with you guys soon. Okay? Alrighty. I hope you all have a great day. I hope you all are safe, and it's been awesome teaching you guys. Mr. Roebuck takes over next week, so look forward to that because he's got some great stuff planned. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found these YouTube sessions helpful. And yeah, if you need anything, Mr. Roebuck has my contact info, so let him know. Okay? All right. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.